And now the sequel you've been waiting for. Double-sided playback, double-sided discs, even double disc sets. More of CinemaDuo's LaserDisc Collection coming right at you in CLV and CX noise reduction. So, this is my collection from the letter B to the letter H. And this is what I've picked up recently and as well as several months ago. So it's a kind of a compilation here. After all this time that I've been going through with getting these discs, I finally got a chance to complete the Sergio Leone Spaghetti Western trilogy with Clint Eastwood, and here they are. This, of course, is A Fistful of Dollars. Very interesting movie. Quite familiar with this, but when I saw it for dirt cheap and it was still in this plastic sleeve, I couldn't refuse, so I had to get this. Then I also have this already in my collection, as I purchased this back in the 90s, but this is one of my favorites out of his collection. I really love the story on this one. It is a double jacket gatefold that opens up, but there's no chapter searches. Weak, but nevertheless, great movie. And of course, the most famous one out of the bunch is none other than The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, featuring Eli Wallach and Lee Van Cleef, rounding out with Clint Eastwood playing the man with no name to even more greater heights. This is just an awesome movie. Who is that filmmaker? What's his name? Oh, Quentin Tarantino. He cited this as one of his influences, and once you see this, you'll see that he's pretty much copying off this movie a lot. In most regards of its long scenes, its drawn out dialogue, and so forth and so on that's in it. But nevertheless, this is a great picture. Great way to get it. I went out and I found this, which was a surprise. Bull Durham, featuring Kevin Costner and Susan Sarandon and Tim Robbins. And this was done by Ron Shelton, who gave us White Man Can't Jump. I have not seen this movie in years, and this is going to be something that I definitely want to watch all the way through. Good one. Then, I'd seen this inside the store several times, and I passed on it, but every time I came back it was sitting there, so I finally said, what the heck, let me just get it anyways. And Brian De Palma's Carlito's Way, featuring Al Pacino and Sean Penn. And this is a really interesting movie. I did see this originally in the theater when it was released. Even when it came out, I'm kind of surprised myself that I didn't buy it, because I did like the movie enough to where I got it on DVD and Blu-ray as well. But now I finally get even and get this thing on LaserDisc, which is a THX LaserDisc. But the more I watch this movie, the more I enjoy Brian De Palma's cinematic style on this one. This is very interesting, to say the least. The next one, of course, is another famous one, but this is a famous gangster picture, but this is none other than from Martin Scorsese, and this is Casino. And I have not seen this movie all the way through. I've heard about it. It's pretty much got the same narrative style as Goodfellas, so I can see how some people are disappointed with that, but nevertheless, I want to see this thing all the way through and see what it's like. A 3-hour epic. Then I finally got the other LaserDisc from Criterion that I was really after. Presenting the most important film of the 20th century, the 21st century, and beyond. The story of Charles Foster Kane. Witness his humble beginnings, how he creates an empire upon an empire. Watch how his friends admired him, ridiculed him, and hated him. See how Kane filled his Xanadu palace with an art collection so big it would take 2 Smithsonian Institutes to house it all. Charles Foster Kane, the legend of all legends, the myth of epic proportions, larger than life, larger than the internet, Watch Citizen Kane. I didn't want the original ones. I wanted the more of the newer release, the newer transfer, and that, of course, is Orson Welles' Citizen Kane. I finally got the CAV edition that I wanted. It's finally in my hands, finally in my possession, and of course, to see Greg Toland, ASC's startling cinematography is awesome. Kind of an interesting feat about him. The film he did prior to this was The Grapes of Wrath, which also featured a low-lit candle scene too in there. But this is just awesome, just outstanding movie. This is the best way to get Citizen Kane and LaserDisc is the Criterion discs. And while cruising through one of the stores, I was absolutely shocked to see this sitting around and nobody interested in that, which is City Slickers. Old school Billy Crystal comedy and one of Jack Palance's last movies that he did. Yeah, I believe it was a couple 3 years later, I believe he finally passed away, but this is still a good movie, and this is another movie that I saw in the theater when it first came out. But surprise, surprise, it's a THX Laserdisc. And then, when you see this sitting inside the bin, I figured I had to grab it immediately, and that is Clear and Present Danger. This features a rather simple jacket, rather simple layout on the disc, but yes, I did have the flyer in there that explains AC3 digital in it. So this is just a great find, and of course I love the picture. It's awesome. Then another one that was a surprise, and this came from a John Grisham novel, and that is The Client, featuring Susan Sarandon and Tommy Lee Jones. And this is the only other Joel Schumacher film that I have in my collection. And the other one is, no, it's not The Lost Boys. I avoided that at all costs. I wanted something else. So maybe I'll surprise you with that sometime down the road a piece. But this is actually an interesting movie. And I did see this originally in the theater. And I taped it over to SVHS cassette. And since my SVHS VCR broke down, I haven't got the gumshoe to go out and get it fixed. But nevertheless, it's nice to get the disc, and I think it was only like a couple bucks, so I figured I'd just grab it and add it to the collection. Then I decided I would get this, because it was in CAV full feature format, and that is Cliffhanger. And it has Rennie Harlan's commentary on it, a bunch of extra features on it, and I can't wait to watch this all the way through and peer through this with all the features of CAV. Very interesting find, nevertheless. Then the other one that was just sitting on the bargain bin, couldn't refuse that, which is Crimson Tide with Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman. And this is a AC3 THX Laserdisc. And very simple, laid out single jacket movie. And this was a disc that when I got a hold of, I had to do quite a bit of cleaning to. It was just bombarded with fingerprints, but once I got that cleaned up, it sounds great. And this is something that you definitely throw in there if you have the AC3 demodulator present on your system. It does bring it out quite good. Good movie though. And then I found something kind of a rarity, and I don't think I've seen too many of them on eBay, and I know I've not seen too many in the store, and that is Neil Jordan's The Crying Game. And yes, this is the movie that he did before doing the adaptation of Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire. And I couldn't believe it was sitting there. I was like, well, I gotta pick up this thing. And I don't remember seeing it all the way through. It's been such a long time watching this movie, and it is shot in the 235:1 anamorphic process. But interesting find to say the least. Can't wait to watch it all the way through. The other one was, and I've seen this through several of the stores, and it's all over the place on the internet. It's not hard to find. It's not hard to get a hold of this. And that is Kevin Costner's Dances with Wolves. And it is a gatefold 2-disc set, 3 hours in length. Yes, it is an epic, but very good movie, and can't wait to sit through all the way through this one again. And the other one that I had to get, and once I saw it here, is Wolfgang Petersen's Das Boot, featuring Jürgen Prochnow in the lead. And this is the version that is German with English subtitles. And this is the way to watch the movie. with the subtitles, because the German language on this thing adds so much more. It is awesome, and this is a absolute 5-star cinema movie. This is the movie that made Wolfgang Petersen famous as a director, and he's released several other longer editions, which I want to get a hold of. I have not gotten a hold of him, and believe it or not, in DVD or Blu-ray. I don't know what the holdup was on that. I'm surprised. But this is awesome. Great, great movie. And then I found this one. I wanted to get a hold of this, which is Kenneth Branagh's Dead Again, featuring Emma Thompson, Derek Jacobi, and Andy Garcia. And this, as you can see by the jacket, it's not really in good condition. It's kind of beat up a bit, and it was for cheap, but I mean, I got this thing in its jacket and it literally was half out, stuffed inside here. I mean, all the way down to here. And this was a disc that I really had to do some cleanup on. But despite some of the scratches and despite all that, it still plays really good. And Patrick Doyle's music score on this thing is awesome. The next one was a total shock. I did not expect to find this at all, which is the widescreen edition of Days of Heaven, featuring Richard Gere and Sam Shepard. And this is an interesting movie. This shows you what you can do with very little dialogue. It has been famously photographed by Nestor Almendros, ASC. And Nestor's claim to fame on this movie is he didn't use any filters. No filterization to add to the color or anything. This was all naturally filmed. Very interesting. But this is worth a look at, definitely. The other one is, I couldn't refuse, the Coen Brothers classic Fargo, featuring Frances McDormand, who is just awesome in this. And I believe Bill Macy is inside this too. He's awesome in this too. It's just typical Coen Brothers. You got all these off-the-wall characters in it, and they're out there humor. Love it. Great fun. But it's a bit beat up. The opening sequence has a lot of white elements inside of it. I don't think it's LaserDisc rod. I didn't check for that, but oh well. I got it for cheap, so I figured I'd add it to the collection. The next one was another movie that I was quite familiar with, but to find the director's cut of Fatal Attraction through Paramount was kind of interesting. I'm familiar with this movie. It features Glenn Close and Michael Douglas in it, and directed by Adrian Lyne, who directed Flashdance as well. But this has always been a movie for me that the first hour is great, and the last hour it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. So I want to give it a shot again. It says also in the back of the disc that it features a controversial ending. Well, I want to find out what is so controversial about the ending. But nevertheless, I want to give us a second shot and see if it does impress me or not, or if it still remains the same. First hour, great. The last hour, ridiculous. The next movie was also a no-brainer. Yeah, I had to add it back into the collection. The Fugitive. And of course that features Harrison Ford and of course Tommy Lee Jones. Everybody knows about this movie by now. This is just awesome, outstanding movie. And now that I've got it in LaserDisc, it completes the circle of DVD as well as Blu-ray. Love the movie. And of course, the other movie that I had to get a hold to add to the collection is the Academy Award winning film featuring Clark Gable, Vivien Leigh, and Olivia de Havilland in Gone with the Wind. This movie was shot in the 3-strip color Technicolor process. That means they had the 3 strips of film running through this thing simultaneously to shoot it. This still stands as an outstanding effort for its day when 99% of the movies were shot in black and white. This looked like they were shooting in color the whole time. It's really impressive, but to watch this thing all the way straight through with 5 discs, that's quite a bit of a chore. I do have the movie in DVD, so the reason why I got the CAV disc was to watch certain scenes and study them in the CAV format, where I take advantage of all the CAV full feature set. But once again, it's also a great find, and it's just an outstanding box set. But 5 discs. And of course, this is a stage play adaptation of Glengarry Glen Ross. And this is loaded with the cast. We have Al Pacino, Jack Lemmon, Alec Baldwin, Ed Harris, Alan Arkin, and Kevin Spacey in it. And I saw this when it was out, when it was initially released in LaserDisc. I did not see this in the theater, but this was a good find to get a hold of because I like the theatrical presentation in it. And speaking of theater, how dare ye not get the Baird, Shakespeare. And this is Kenneth Branagh's adaptation of Hamlet. This is an epic. It is 4 hours in length. So for me to watch this thing all the way through, I'm going to have to divide it up to at least 2 days. Just to sit through it 4 hours is just too much. But we have Kenneth Branagh, Julie Christie, Billy Crystal, Gerard Depardieu, Charlton Heston, Derek Jacobi, Jack Lemmon, Rufus Sewell, Robin Williams, Kate Winslet. So this is really something, and this was shot in 70mm. So very interesting to say the least. The 2:1 aspect ratio. Then I got another one, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, featuring Rebecca De Mornay, and directed by Curtis Hanson, who directed L.A. Confidential, Hush Hush on the QT. But nevertheless, this was the picture he did before it, so I figured I'd get a hold of this and give it a shot. When it first came out, I just really wasn't too crazy about it. I did see it in the theater, and this was something at the time, years ago, that when it came out in LaserDisc, I voted no on it. But since it was for so cheap, I decided to grab a hold of it and ask the question why I refused it at the time to add to the collection. But we shall see as I watch through it again in the future. Then, this was the must-get in the other Criterion disc that I had to get, which is John Woo's masterwork, Hard Boiled, featuring Chow Yun-fat. And this is hard to describe because this is the craziest action movie you will ever watch. The stunts are just through the roof good. Essentially, it's Die Hard in a hospital. But outside of that, I mean, I don't want to give away anything else, but just one crazy action sequence after the other. My favorite is the opening sequence in the Whittam team house. Love it. This was a great find. I just had to get this in my collection at all costs. And that is what covers it for these letters. And I got more of them that came in, and more surprises and more Criterions that I just had to have in the collection. And we shall see that in upcoming videos. So, for all my friends out there, just get out there, get your LaserDisc player, fire it up, get the proper amplifier with a proper Dolby surround on it, and if you have an AC3 demodulator, crank them up, put them in there, tell me all about it, alright? Enjoy.